The reason we watch football is because we care about the outcomes. And it's not that way for a lot of sports. In the NBA, the bottom of the NBA is so large, you end up watching games sometimes because you just want to watch like an individual star or two. You don't really care about who wins the game. And I've been saying this all season, where the NFL's got to be careful. It's become so quarterback-centric, and the rules are so quarterback-friendly. If you don't have a great quarterback, you're a have-not. So you don't want to become the NBA. You want to care about the outcomes. And last night felt like an NBA game. All I care about was Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's the only reason I watched that game. And that's what I worry about. The NFL bottom is getting large. There's like 11 teams that are hard to watch. Burrow, 33 of 44. He's absolutely brilliant. Jamar Chase, 14 catches, game winner. Probably the second best receiver in the entire world. These are all-time greats, but they are stuck in a shaky organization that, frankly, has suboptimal ownership and a front office. They're the opposite of the Eagles. They don't take any risks. Now, it's not the first time ever a great quarterback has been stuck with a franchise that can't deliver for him. Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, same ownership in Cincinnati. Matt Stafford. Joe Burrow is similar. There is no arguing. This is why you have to contextualize championships. The fact that he got a bad offensive line and a lousy linebacking core, that team, it's almost impossible to get a bad O-line to a conference championship. He got to within a play of winning the Super Bowl. The guy is absolutely incredible. But I'm watching him last night, and I felt like I'm watching an NBA game. I'm just watching this for Burrow and Chase, because I think Jamar Chase is a top 10 wide receiver talent of my life. I think he's that good. I'm not saying he's Jerry Rice. He's an all-timer. I remember when he came out of college, they're like, he's not that fast. I don't know. Nobody catches him. And Burrow, what do you want to say? He's the one guy that will go into Arrowhead Stadium and I think gives Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo nightmares. So much about life, especially for young people, is where you land. Mahomes got a great owner and a great coach. Josh Allen got a good owner and a good coach. And that's the difference between a conference championship and trophies. And so, like they say in real estate, location, location, location. And that's why I always say you have to contextualize championships. Dan Marino had a great coach, never a great defense, doesn't have any. He got to the Super Bowl once. And that's why I say about John Elway. John Elway is probably the greatest prospect to ever enter the league in terms of talent. I mean, it was number one. There was no question. John Elway got to Super Bowls and got humiliated. He got beat by 45, 32, 19 points. John Elway, he's a talented loser in the big games. Then he got an all-time coach, Mike Shanahan, and Terrell Davis, back-to-back Super Bowls, retires, and he's a legend. I mean, even now, you just say the word Elway. It's like Pele. Elway, like everybody gets. It means great. It wasn't that for a long time. He needed the right coach. So to me, I look at Joe Burrow, and I saw a stat this morning, and this really sums it up. Burrow, here's quarterbacks that have led the league in passing touchdowns on teams with losing records in the past 50 years. Joe Montana, Drew Brees, and Joe Burrow. And, Montana was fortunate. He had the ownership. He got the coach. But it doesn't always work that way. And this is not a referendum against Zach Taylor. But I'm just watching Burrow last night and Jamar Chase. 14 catches, game-winning touchdowns, hasn't been paid yet. I'm not sure what they're waiting for, but because they're not going to pay T. Higgins. And they've already let safeties and Joe Mixon go. I don't know what they're waiting for. I think he'd have a contract in Philadelphia already. Crazy me, I think he'd have one. So the Chicago Bears, according to a popular former radio host, now a podcaster, Dan McNeil, they're down to 4 head coaching candidates. These are the names you're hearing. Ben Johnson, Brian Flores, Joe Brady, and Mike Vrabel. So now I believe that some jobs, and I'm not just talking football, some jobs are too big for first-timers. You can't go from intern to chief resident at a hospital. You can't go from city controller to president of the United States. That's too much. And there are just too many potholes and obstacles for Joe Brady or Ben Johnson. This is not the job. This is not the job for those two guys. It's too big. It has too many moving parts, too much dysfunction. The two guys, let's first talk Brian Flores, because he's very interesting. Been a head coach, tremendous defensive resume, learned under the school of Belichick, has been in a dysfunctional organization. He created some of it, and he failed, but he created a culture and a defense very quickly. Now he's intense. He didn't get along with Tua. He's acknowledged it. He's been reflective. I wouldn't make him my first choice, but I've said all year, Brian Flores deserves a head coaching job. He's just too damn good at defense. And he's also been willing. He's not a stubborn guy. He has gone to the podium and said, hey, man, I wish I could do the Tua thing differently. And I know internet trolls want you to believe that they're perfect, but most of us make mistakes in our life all the time. Nick Saban was just talking about this the other day on TV when he took the Dolphins job, and he had a couple funny lines that you make mistakes, you make choices if you're aggressive. And Brian Flores is a hyper-aggressive guy, but he deserves a second job. He is a really good coach. He would be my 1A. But my 1 would be Mike Vrabel, because he's been a head coach for 6 years. He's been part of a dynasty. He got to a conference championship with Ryan Tannehill. And most of all, he is a culture changer. And I talked about this yesterday. If you look at organizations that were really a mess, like the Chargers with Brandon Staley, the Lions forever, it wasn't just guys who were schemers. It was culture changers. Jim Harbaugh has changed the way we think about the Chargers. Dan Campbell, the biting kneecap stuff, he's not a scheme expert. What he is a culture changer. And I think that matters. When Green Bay was looking for a coach, I'll never forget this. I got a call on Matt LaFleur, and I called around, and I said, what do you know about Matt LaFleur? And the question was, well, McVay, Shanahan, and LaFleur are tight. McVay's the culture guy. Handsome, walks into a big, lot of confidence. He's the culture changer. And he did that to the Rams literally in 2 weeks. Whereas LaFleur was really good with schemes, could develop into a big presence. But Green Bay wasn't a mess. Green Bay wins. They draft and develop well. What they needed is somebody to get along with Aaron Rodgers, and somebody that with their draft and development program and their smart, mostly frugal free agent signings, they didn't need somebody to blow it up. Aaron and McCarthy didn't get along. LaFleur gets along with everybody in the league. And so it's different. San Francisco, when they hired Kyle Shanahan, they had good ownership. They had some good players. They needed a scheme expert. So not every team needs the same thing. Vrabel's my choice in Chicago. He's a culture guy. He's had dysfunction in Tennessee. But I got to tell you, Brian Flores is a strong 1A to me, because I watched him go to Miami. He may have messed up the Tua thing, and defensive coaches aren't always great in the offensive rooms. But I think Vrabel's the play here, and I think it's an easy one. And also, the Bears could have had Jim Harbaugh, who wanted the job and passed on him. This organization could have already solved their cultural issues, and they passed. Don't pass again.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.